How are you guys doing? You guys all right? Nice. Good to be here. Yeah, thank you very much for having me, DLD, Public Possession, everybody involved in today's event. My name is Haseeb Iqbal, and yeah, it was great to speak on that panel discussion just a moment ago, and to kind of, yeah, unpack the etiquettes and philosophies and origins of our DJ journeys, which is really cool. And yeah, it's now a real pleasure to spend the next little period of time going through a bit about the history of DJ culture, which is an enormous topic that was instructed to me by Tigran to tackle. But yeah, a great opportunity to really explore the origins and the foundations of the craft and the sound and the music that we love so much. So I'm going to give it a little crack and we can share that all here together on this beautiful Munich day. And yeah, so I guess to get into it, the place that I'm going to start with this story is Jamaica and the Caribbean. You know, a place that is absolutely foundational and instrumental in terms of its impact on DJ culture. And this goes back to the origins of sound system culture that came out of Jamaica in the 40s and 50s. And sound system culture was one of the first moments in musical history where we had turntables and music and a sound system around which people gathered to come together to experience music in a dance context with passion and excitement. And it kind of traces itself back to the late 1940s and early 1950s. And that was the period when the music that was actually coming out and getting played on the radios in the Caribbean and in Jamaica was all American music. It was American rhythm and blues music that was coming out of places like Philadelphia and New York and Chicago. And this was very inspired by the jazz, and often it was quite led by women who were the singers through so many of these tracks. A big part of this was the initiation and the foundation and formation of Motown Records that came out of Detroit, which nurtured people like Diana Ross, at the same time as bands like the Temptations and the Drifters and the Miracles, and also people like Marvin Gaye and yeah, very Aretha Franklin as well at that same time. So Detroit was really important through that period. And in Jamaica, the British, you know, still ruled Jamaica until 1962. It wasn't until 1962 that the Jamaicans got their independence back. And one of the rules that the British essentially instructed was that on the radios, they were not allowed to play Jamaican music or local music. It had to be British or American music, essentially pushing forward the culture, you know, that Britain wanted to put forward. And so the radio stations would be very influenced by the jazz music that was coming out of America, the soul music, and primarily the rhythm and blues that was going on. So when sound systems started, there were not actually studios, and there wasn't actually those autonomous spaces where local Jamaican artists were getting together and producing their music. Instead, the very early sound systems were not playing local Jamaican music. They were playing American music, rhythm and blues and jazz. And that's something that I find so fascinating, that sound system culture in Jamaica didn't actually even start with ska or rocksteady or reggae. It began with jazz and rhythm and blues and soul music. And so for me, that is where this story starts when we're looking at the history of DJ culture, taking it back to the late 50s and early 60s, where various sound system operators would set up their sound systems and bring people together, and outside people would come in the Caribbean, and the earliest sounds before ska was even making its thing, and before the Jamaicans were even finding their identity independently through music, it was this kind of music that was getting played. And this is a singer from Philadelphia, and this record came out on a Philadelphia label called Arctic. Her name is Della Humphrey, and she's a really interesting singer because she was making soul records in the 60s in America, But at the same time, she was one of the only soul singers in America to come over to Jamaica and work with Clement Coxon Dodd, who ran the biggest studio and label called Studio One. But we're taking it back to the origins of the mid-60s, the American sound. And this is a beautiful song called Your Love Is All I Need by Della Humphrey. And so yeah, this is where it starts. This is the beginning of that story in many ways, remembering the original sounds, the original inspirations that were being played on that sound system, and all the reggae artists and the dub DJs that came, this is what they heard at the beginning. So yeah, starting with this one, Della Humphrey, Your Love Is All I Need. What a beautiful song. Incredible, yeah, isn't it? Oh, goodness me. Della Humphrey with a song called Your Love Is All I Need. Yeah, that was very much part of that early American rhythm and blues sound that was coming in and very much inspiring the Jamaicans. And you've got to remember that Jamaica and the Caribbean already had their history of sound that was affecting them and impacting and influencing them. And a lot of that had come from the island. You had sounds such as calypso that was massive in terms of that bridge between the African roots of a lot of these black people and their ancestors, but also the energy of the islands that they were on, bringing in these instruments, that sunshine music that was so inspired by their setting. And as this ended up coming in, there ended up becoming a fusion between the American rhythm and blues and jazz and that old island music. And that resulted in a sound called ska. And suddenly ska was the first sound of that new music that was coming from these islands that went on to become reggae. And the reason why ska ended up becoming its thing, and it hadn't really evolved before, is because it intersected with a moment in history where those in Jamaica finally were creating their own studios. So the fact that the British were still ruling Jamaica until 1962 had a certain influence on it. But as certain technicians kind of really evolved scientifically, and people like King Tubby and Prince Buster and Duke Reid came together, they built their own sound systems, and beyond that, they built their own studios. So for the first time in history, Jamaican musicians could come together, and they weren't reliant on the American or British labels to record them and release them. And suddenly, they could record themselves. And after listening to those sounds for years, it was that fusion between Jamaica and America that resulted in ska, which then became a sound called rocksteady. Rocksteady was a response to ska. Ska was kind of defined by these quick guitar chops and almost this kind of island-like skanking and dancing. And then you kind of had these people that continued to gather at sound systems. And from that, they just wanted something a little bit more relaxed to dance to. And it was during that time of sound system culture and DJ culture really erupting that something really interesting became a common theme amongst the DJs. And it's still a common theme now amongst DJs, and it was called the dub plate. And the dub plate was the original white label. It was the original exclusive, the unreleased track that nobody had ever heard before. And this was a moment where, pre-1962, when the British were saying to the radio stations, you can only play American and British music, suddenly it meant that when the sound systems were playing Jamaican music, thousands of people were coming onto the street because it was the only opportunity they had to hear their local music at a time where they were very much trying to process and develop their own identity. And during that time, sound system operators would come, and it was a very entrepreneurial business model. People would come, they would charge entry, vendors would sell food and drinks, and people that were running these parties would end up making quite a lot of money, and the people that were going would have a wonderful day out. I mean, even now in London, Notting Hill Carnival is completely based off that template, apart from the fact you don't have to pay to enter. That would be a tragedy. But, you know, I love Notting Hill Carnival. So at this time, you had a few people coming in, and when the dub plates ended up becoming, really important, was during this period of sound clashes. And it wouldn't just be a sound system running a party. It ended up becoming the thing that defined early reggae music, which was the fact that you'd enter a space or a garden, and there would be 2 or 3 sound systems that would be clashing each other, which essentially means they'd be playing one record on one turntable, and then afterwards they would maybe speak a little bit, and then the other sound system would play one record on that. And the sound clash would be a competition, and the winner of the competition would be defined by who the crowd made the loudest noise for. And this is what drove it. And so the sound system operators decided that in order to excite a crowd, they can't play them music that they'd already heard. So at the time where Jamaica was creating its own music for the first time, the DJ, the sound system operator, would be going to the local music studio and essentially saying, what new music have you got that nobody's heard yet? And people like Duke Reid, who ran Treasure Isle, or Clement Coxon Dodd, who ran Studio One, or Lee Scratch Perry, who ran Blackheart, would say, I've just recorded this track, nobody's heard it. And the DJ would take it, and often if you find an old Jamaican record in a record shop and it's all scratched out, either it's all black or it's all white, essentially it means that it was probably used in a sound clash back in the 60s, and the DJ didn't want the opposing sound system to see who it was. And it was in which year was it? It was in 1966, I think, 1967, that a really important moment came about that changed DJ culture forever. And it was based off the exact process that I was just telling you. And there was a sound system run by a guy called Rudolph Redwood, who went by the name of Mr. Midnight. And he was running the sound system and clashing somebody, and he did exactly what I just said. He went over to Duke Reid, who basically ran a label called Treasure Isle, which was the label of Rocksteady. And he went over to him and he said, what music have you got that's just come out that nobody's heard? And he had a band called the Paragons, who were like a rock steady band, like were singing really sweet kind of love-inspired music, really similar to what you heard, but with a Jamaican twang. And he said they've just done a great song that I've just cut yesterday called On the Beach. And so Rudy Redwood said, I would love a copy of that to play at my party. So Rudy Redwood got Duke Reid to do it, and Duke Reid instructed his recording engineer, a man called Byron Smith, to press it onto the dub plate. And so he did that, and he gave it to Rudy Redwood. The next day, Rudy Redwood was at the Sound Clash where he was performing, and he played this record, the Paragons, On the Beach. And as the record played, he realized that the sound engineer, Byron Smith, had made a mistake, and he forgot to put the vocal in. This was just as multi-track recording came into the world in the mid-60s, so suddenly producers could play with the bass and the highs and the vocals rather than having them all on one channel. And accidentally yesterday, when that guy had pressed that track, the vocal channel was left down. And so suddenly, the song was playing, and the bass was hitting harder, and the vocal wasn't coming in. And apparently, the crowd went crazy. And it was at that moment that dub music and the vision for dub music, instrumental dance floor music, was born by accident for the first time. Apparently, it's been written about that that moment was so crazy that they played that song on repeat for 45 minutes because the crowd were losing their marbles and they didn't want to put on a vocal track. And the MC, who would normally speak in between tracks, started, because obviously all the tracks were vocal, right? Because it was instrumental, the MC, a man called Wasi, yeah, sounds like me, Haseeb, started kind of spitting bars and like basically rapping, toasting over the instrumental beat. That was the original, initial, foundational moment that the vision for rapping was born. Somebody on a microphone accidentally cut on a track where the vocal had been taken out, on a sound system that was loud and the bass was hitting, going off. And so just to give you a little bit of an idea of kind of what the sound was like at that time, this was a track that came out in Jamaica. We obviously started with the American track, Your Love Is All I Need by Della Humphrey, and this is just a kind of a signal of where it had gotten to in Jamaica. This is a Black Ark, Lee Scratch Perry's label, and it's produced by Lee Scratch Perry. It's a song called The Long Way. It's one of the most beautiful love songs that I think's ever been released, and the singer is a man called Junior Biles. And this was a very kind of similar sound to the song where the vocal had been left out. So it wasn't like a heavy dubby track, it was just a regular reggae song. But this was the transition. It was this moment where this song and these sounds were coming out and suddenly the vocal had gone. But this is a vocal track just to give you an idea of that development from the American rhythm and blues into the Jamaican reggae. Junior Biles, The Long Way, produced by Lee Scratch Perry. Rest in peace.
Don't are, baby. Because I adore you so much, you know. So don't try. Because I still need you warm until you can try to keep me without you, darling. So don't try. Hey, we've been on the mountain, and I thought you knew. We've been through the valley where the green herbs grow. Oh, darling, it was the long way. So don't break my heart, yeah, darling. I don't jump. I don't jump, jump. I jump, jump. 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 I jump, jump. And I'm gonna take you by the river, gonna take you down by the riverside, and I'm gonna make you my little bride.
Wow, what a beautiful song. I love playing that towards the end of a dance. Yeah, amazing. Junior Biles, The Long Way, and you can really see that development from the American love songs that were coming in through the radio stations and the sound systems to Jamaica, getting their studios, doing their versions of it. And it was a song like that where the vocal had been left out, and suddenly this new vision, by accident, had been born. And one of the really interesting things about that sound clash that had happened is there was a man that was present. Bear in mind, the man who made the accident by leaving out the vocal was called Byron Smith. There was another man called Byron Lee who was at the gig and basically took massive note of that 45 minutes that sent the crowd off, where they were going crazy to this instrumental music that was coming out of the sound system for the first time. And Byron Lee was a Chinese Jamaican whose parents had come over, and he'd basically been born there and had been influenced by various sorts of stuff. There was a big Chinese immigration over to Jamaica. There was also a big Syrian and Lebanese immigration that came over. And also in the 1830s, Pakistani and Indian as part of the indentured labour servitude. So this is stuff that's also interesting that I didn't actually know before music. Was actually all the different kind of webs of culture that have immersed themselves into the islands that have made all this amazing music. And also Cuban. There was a big Cuban kind of immigration over following the Civil War, which was also really important. But this guy, Byron Lee, ended up leaving that show, and he went straight the next day to one of his friends. And he went to his friend and he said, "Mate, you will not believe what happened yesterday. They played this track that apparently the vocal had accidentally been left out. Everyone went crazy. You need to hear about what was going on." And his friend was a man called King Tubby. And King Tubby listened to this story and was like, okay, interesting what you're talking about. And King Tubby had basically been, but for the last 7 or 8 years before this moment, had been running a shop in Jamaica, and it was called Tubby's Hi-Fi, the same name as his sound system. And his shop was centered around repairing people's radio stations and repairing people's sound systems. And because Jamaica had such fluctuating tropical weather and there were so many storms, he would always get work because people would always have their radio aerials kind of broken or the sound systems would get rained on. So he trained himself as this engineer to really tap into that field. And so when there was an issue, he could supply his services, get paid for it, keep his shop going, and do that. And simultaneously through this, as he was learning about the electronics and the relationship to the climate in Jamaica, which is such an interesting strand of it that you'd never really think about, it was at that time that he was building his own sound system, King Tubby's. But he was also getting access to Duke Reid's studio, Treasure Isle, the same studio where they made that mistake a few days earlier, because it was one of the first studios in Jamaica to have that multi-track channel. So when Byron Lee told King Tubby, this is what happened, King Tubby, ironically enough, went into the same studio that they'd made that mistake in a few days before, because he was working for Duke Reed, and spent a day in there being like, I'm just going to make instrumental reggae music. And for the first time, this innovator took this idea, took this approach, and started manipulating the bass to make it heavier, started putting in echoes and filters, stuff that had never been done before away from a DJ set. Suddenly you had the producer doing this, making the bass stronger, doing that. King Tubby cut it, they ended up playing it on King Tubby's hi-fi, and suddenly the reaction was beyond what we had seen a few days before. And dub music was born. So when we talk about dub music, you know, Rudy Reddock accidentally played that song, but King Tubby was the first person to see that as the vision of instrumental dance music, where the bass can oscillate with the melodies and the harmonies, and you can create something without the vocals that can really touch a dance floor. And this next song is King Tubby with a song called Dub Organizer, where you can hear the development from that song. If we were to take away the vocals of that, it's quite a kind of, you know, repeated rhythm, and it's beautiful, but you know, there isn't much manipulation on the instrumental. You can see the development from that to this, and this is where King Tubby took it, and this truly is the birth of dub music.
Still letting the instruments breathe, but really elevating that bass. This had never been done before.
So good, amazing. King Tubby there with the dub organizer. And just, you know, I find it so beautiful that that shift in the culture and that shift in the sound happened by accident. And it's just a great reminder of the fact that, you know, in a world where we're trying to perfect everything and learn everything, sometimes the greatest moments actually just happen when we're totally open to something spontaneous going and actually just being present. And Byron Lee just being there, being like, my friend King Tubby would love this story, and he actually brought it back, and suddenly this inventor, you know, was born. And even though King Tubby is truly credited as being the inventor, many would say that Lee Scratch Perry is the innovator, because he went and took that and essentially did to dub music what Sun Ra did to free jazz, incorporating the Moogs, incorporating the synthesizers, plugging in TVs and making crazy sounds, and really using technology to their advantage to elevate sound to a place and a dimension that it had never been. And I think that's the thing that's so interesting. These are sounds that are so rooted in history, yet when these innovators come across and actually see, how can I bridge the gap between the analog, the old school, and the technology and the future? And finding those little gaps and fusing those together is kind of what's created magic like that. And King Tubby laid down the foundations there for almost so many, if not every form of electronic music that has come since. But it's really important to note that during that, aside from the DJ element, but on a musical element, Sun Ra, the jazz composer in Chicago, New York, and Philadelphia, was doing a similar thing with the Moog in the late 50s. So, you know, it was Tubby, Scratch, and Sun Ra that were really pushing that early, and nobody else was really doing it. But a thing that was really significant in the importance of that and the development of the DJ culture was the transmission of that from Jamaica over to New York. And there was a man called DJ Kool Herc, who was born in 1955 in Jamaica and essentially grew up watching these sound system raves and watching people toast. And it was in 1967, as a 13-year-old, that he went over to the Bronx in Jamaica, and he was essentially credited with putting two turntables together, creating some breaks, and off the back of Wasi, the MC, and what he had done, giving an MC a microphone and getting them to rap. And it was in 1970 that Gil Scott-Heron's first ever record came out, Small Talk at 125th and Lenox Avenue, which I didn't actually bring with me, but I should have. But you can't bring everything with you. And Gil Scott-Heron basically performed his poetry over the drums and jazz music, and he's arguably the first ever rapper. But what was birthed out of that was hip-hop culture, directly from Jamaica, fused into the black experience, but now in New York, more concrete, more energetic, more ruthless, a bit more of a harsh reality. The soft sound of the island dub and the island instruments slightly going, and a bit more of the harshness, the machinery of the inner city had come, and suddenly hip-hop was born.
Tired of bouncing, so check this here. We got the neck breaking, club shaking beat for this year. Yeah, so keep the stilo and the flow. I got your head nodding cause your neck already knows. So pass the mic and watch skills rip fast. And have clubbing parties catching whiplash. Slash, the whack. I'm trying to bite my style. Think your is the old school departure from eyebrows. I'm coming through, Duke is about to get set. So act like woo, protect that neck and check wrong. I'm still tending to the song. I be blowing up spots like I was sending out mail bombs. Stay home and keep nodding, see. I'm like a black president. Why? They ain't seeing me. Has-beens, we bump like bad skin, some fake shit. After this joint, yo, we passing out some neck. I got your head nodding cause your neck knows it's back. Check it out like this, and then like that. I got your head nodding cause your neck knows it's back. Check it out like this, and then like that. I got your head nodding cause your neck knows it's back. Check it out like this, and then like that. I got your head nodding cause your neck knows it's back. Check it out like this, and then like that. Yo, my tracks pack energy like nuclear reactors. I be mad skills in this beat, the nod factor. Actor, MC, smoke me, take a toke. I a career like the cast on different strokes, no joke. I see hairlines and start aiming rhymes. They have hard the soul train lines. Bumping with the big black broad named Belinda. Oh, you rap, don't say jack and walk wide like a ninja. I injure beats, so you should expect to go to Cairo so I can like a shaking that neck, you got set. And guess what? I'm the one that said it. You regret it, cause my beats be employing paramedics. I went, yeah, and it'll stay that way. I know you'll be back, you probably got some rhymes on later way. But I be here freaking fat funk to make you sweat. Do me a favor and tell your neck that I ain't finished yet. I got your head nodding cause your neck knows it's fat. Check it out like this and then like that. I got your head nodding cause your neck knows it's fat. Check it out like this and then like that. Got your head nodding cause your neck knows it's fat. Check it out like this and then like that. I got your head nodding cause your neck knows it's fat.
Yeah, big tune. That one's from Detroit, which always comes back to Detroit, the story of music. That's something that I've learned, and I'm gonna stop apologizing for that because it keeps happening. But it was actually a few weeks ago, I went on a solo trip. I was playing in New York and I went to Detroit and Chicago purely to just dig the records and learn about the history. And I just cannot believe how many movements Detroit is so responsible for. From the birth of Motown, the development of soul music, the people that have come from there, Alice Coltrane, Marvin Gaye, Dorothy Ashby, Yusuf Lateef, Eminem, Jay Dilla. Its population is 600,000. Obviously it's decreased a little bit, but it was never more than 1 or 2 million. It's unbelievable what that city has been so responsible for. I know we've got to kind of, round things up. So we've got one more tune left. So obviously, you can't do the whole of DJ history in an hour, but I appreciate you guys all being here, bearing with me. Just to give you one, guys, and it's a beautiful way to actually finish this off because it finishes in Munich, this little snippet of what I've shared today, is you had that hip hop thing that was going off that was really amazing. And at the similar time, hip hop was an expression of kind of the black experience for a lot of people. A lot of people that felt like their voice hadn't been heard and wanted to express the inner city reality of their complex lives, whether it was the harshness, whether it was what kind of conditions they faced or what lifestyles they lived. It became a voice for a lot of young people that were born in America and were searching for that. And simultaneously, as you tend to have through music, there was another movement that was going on, and that was disco. And disco was going off and offering a lot of people in America a slightly more relaxed approach to their reality, a place and an idea and an environment in which they could live where they could just dance together and feel that vibe. And it was going off at the same time, and they both had the same crowds and excitements as each other. And as disco was developing out of the origins of Philadelphia soul, which we started with too, suddenly Kraftwerk, ended up producing a track called Autobahn, which I believe was it 1974? Yeah, 1974. And when Kraftwerk released that, and I actually met, what's the name of that fella who the founder of Kraftwerk? Ralph, right? Yeah. I met him in Detroit. He was there when I was there. He found me very annoying. He didn't answer any. I was like, and he was just like, I was like, all right, fair enough. Nice to meet you. Can I have a photo? I was like, all right, cool. But it was cool to meet him, and I was actually with the Belleville Three, Juan Atkins, Derek May, and Kevin Saunderson, who were the three inventors of Techno. They were actually doing this party together. It was a complete mad coincidence. But it was when Kraftwerk released that in 1974, that off the back of that, Detroit and Chicago were really kind of touched by that. And the really funny thing is that Kraftwerk made that tune wanting to show the world what the motorway sounded like. And in Detroit, you had the motor city of the world producing the most cars that ended up responding to that. So the relationship between cars and mechanics and music was really strong. And it was electronic music that was showing people and making people feel the way that cars were making them feel in this quite strange way. And that's where Germany and Detroit shared this real connection. And to round it all off, to finish it up, in 1977, it was in Munich that the Italian producer Giorgio Moroder, massively inspired by all of this, collaborated with a disco soul singer, Donna Summer, to bridge together all of the little web bits that I've just told you, to finish it off and kind of just to stop here in 1977, this one, I Feel Love, Donna Summer, big tune. I'm going to play this and then I'll say a quick little goodbye afterwards. Made in Munich. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Finishing it off in the city that we're in. I just want to say a big thank you to all of you guys who've come and really, engaged in this with me. It means a lot. Thank you. I just want to say a big thank you to DLD for bringing me back to Munich. It's my second time here. My first time was in January, and it was great to speak there. Hopefully my next time in Munich will be on the 31st of May if Arsenal reach the final and I can get a ticket to the Allianz. Come on, you Gunners. Big ups to Bayern Munich, who are going to win the league tomorrow, I'm sure. Don't know if you're football fans, but I send you my best. I also want to say a big thank you to Public Possession, who've been brilliant to collaborate on this with and facilitating this. Make some noise for them too. Yeah, and the Haus der Kunst Museum as well, you know, the relationship between grassroots, keeping that relationship between grassroots culture and youthful art alongside big art institutions is so important. So we're forever grateful for the big spaces that bring the young voices and the less heard voices into them, because that's the only way that art and culture and humanity can keep moving forward. So let's keep supporting each other, let's keep expressing ourselves, sharing the stories. Days like this are so important. Thank you so much to Tigran for exercising your vision and bringing this to fruition. We really appreciate it. Yeah, Mark, everyone, to the fellow speakers who are brilliant as well. My name's Haseeb Iqbal. It's been a real joy, and I'll see you at the bar, yeah? Nice one. See ya. See you later. Bless. Nice one, brother.